Hello everyone, welcome to this new tutorial about the OpenAI Assistant API and the Vectorstore. This video was a wish from a subscriber of me who was interested about using the OpenAI Assistant instead of the chat completion. So I went ahead and created for him and my subscriber base a new video explaining how you can use this Assistant API together with the Vectorstore and creating a powerful chatbot. In this video, I'm also explaining what is the difference between Chatcompletion API and the Assistant API. For those who are not following me yet, my name is Christopher Watten, and on my platforms Substack, Medium, YouTube, and the AI Finance Club, I have over 1,000 of people getting the knowledge about new AI topics, Gen AI topics, and how to put the theory into practice and to have a return of investment. So if you're not following me yet, hit the subscribe button so you're not missing any content. Let's get started. So at the end of this tutorial, you will have an assistant chatbot, which is using the new Assistant OpenAI API, and not anymore the chat completion API from OpenAI. The main difference is that previously you had to handle yourself the integration of previous questions and answers into the last question asked by using conversational buffers, making summaries of the previous conversation, and so on. The Assistant API, which is currently under beta status from OpenAI, will handle this by itself by using so-called threads. Here you see shortly what is the assistant based on. So you have a thread, the user message, the assistant message, or the response, and you give basically a task to the assistant, such as being a code interpreter, such as being a retriever, and so on. So basically functions how he should act. And this we integrated all into a Streamlit application. Let me show you what you will have at the end. So let me upload a company reimbursement policy file, and I will ask it now, what is this reimbursement file about? A few seconds later, we will have our information where it will tell us the reimbursement file is about company A reimbursement policy, which outlines the conditions for employee travel expenses reimbursement and the process for applying for reimbursement. Okay, great. Who is eligible? And please give me the answer in form of bullet points. So we'll see now what it will return us. So full-time employees, consultant, and part-time. Great. And now translate this into French. So why is this question now important? Because this question is not related to document because nothing is in French inside, but it is related to the last message he generated for me. So you will see clearly that he understands to what I'm pointing to. In this point, I'm pointing to the last question, and then he translated me this into French. This is what you will get at the end. You will learn today how to integrate the OpenAI Beta Assistant, the Vectorstore, how to combine both, and to deploy everything behind a Streamlit application, and this based on Python. Let's get started first with the theory. So, the Assistant API overview is something which is currently under beta form. It's basically an assistant where you have the purpose of using any OpenAI models and tools, a thread, which is a conversation session between a user and the assistant. The thread stores all the messaging and automatically handle truncation to fit content in its model context, as would be previously done by conversational buffers from LangChain. At the end, you have your message, which is the question towards the assistant, the run, which combines everything, and then you will have your results at the end. A great guide or cookbook provided already by OpenAI is the following. This guide is great and it will tell you all the basics. So I highly recommend reading it by seeing, okay, you have here your client API, then you create your assistant. In this case, he created a math tutor. it's using GPT-4. You can also use GPT 3.5 starting with, so to have less fees. To create afterwards your thread, and you see always, okay, the thread got created at this moment, currently it has no metadata. And then he starts by asking a question. So using the thread, who is it? And I need to solve the equation. Can you help me? So there's the content he sent, and then he will execute the run. Whereas you will now call the assistant behind the person to math tutor and creating the response at the end. You will see here. So there we have the response to the question of the user. At the end, I will package this all within a notebook, first by executing the same code, combining it with a Vectorstore, and then packaging everything again into a nice Streamlit application as you saw before. So let's get started and try it ourselves within Visual Studio Code. Before we get started, we need to first import some packages: OpenAI, Timecodes, and so on. Afterwards, we copy paste the function which we saw previously on the website of the cookbook from OpenAI, where we give a run and a thread ID, and then receiving the response to our question. So for getting started, we need first to import our key within OpenAI. So we create a client. Based on a client, we are creating an assistant by telling him, giving him name, giving him some instructions, and the model to use. Afterwards, we create a thread. So let's execute those codes again, where we see then the JSON as we saw previously on the website. But notice the code interpreter and the file search are none. So basically at this point, the assistant is just working as a chat completion without any prior knowledge added additional. Afterwards, we're going to ask, explain me why 1 plus 1 is equal to. So there we're creating our thread. We are using our thread to create a message, then creating the run, and then sending both the run and the thread to the function to retrieve our results. Let's do this and then see what it will generate. In mathematics, the sum of 1 and 1 is 2, because when you combine one item with another item, you have a total of 2 items. Okay, so far so good. Now let's do the same and seeing how the system understanding the question we asked now in relation with the questions we asked previously, so the conversational part. This is an essential addition or add-on already to the chat completion, because chat completion is independently answering every question the user asks. If you wanna add a conversation, you need to do it manually with conversation buffers such as from LangChain. Here we have the same question answered, but just now in French. And now you can say, okay, basically tell me what were the last 2 answers received from you. So my last 2 answers were explaining 1 plus 1 and then translating that explanation into French. Correct. So now we get to the more tricky part. How we can now add our knowledge, such as article 1 and CV1, which we have here, into a vector store, and then combining this OpenAI Beta Vector Store with the OpenAI Beta Assistant. For doing so, we're creating a new assistant, but this time by mentioning work as a file search, basically work as a retrieval augmented generation model. Afterwards, we're telling which models, which files we're taking. We're creating the vector store. We are reading those files and adding them to the vector store. Afterwards, just validating if everything worked correctly, completed, all is good, counts at 0, completed 2, perfect. We're adding the assistant ID with the vector store ID, so combining them both. And then we're creating a thread. Then we're asking our question as previously saw, but just this time about a document. So what is article 1 about? And here we should receive now something that article 1 is about open source model versus proprietary models, talking about governance and data protection. So all is good. We understood the document and it made a summary out of it. Now we want to again show that he is not just focusing on the documents, but he also understands the conversational part and now translates me the last message into French. Article 1 discute de la compréhension entre les grands modèles de langage à source ouverte, etc. So here we created now using OpenAI Beta Assistant, using OpenAI Beta Vectorstore, combining them, and creating a retrieval augmented generation within a few lines of code. Now let's package this all within a Streamlit application so we can try it within the web. And for facilitating you as always the live, I will upload all this code, the Jupyter Notebook and the Streamlit application to GitHub so you can just download them, exchange your key, and then you're good to go. After we have now created the whole code in Jupyter Notebook, we are now moving on to the Streamlit application part, where we upload our documents with the file uploader, adding them to the Vectorstore, creating our assistant, combining both, and then having the possibility to ask questions in a conversational mode, a thread. Now doing so, we first need to create a class named bytes.io, which is just basically creating a buffer possibility to stream the files to OpenAI. Afterwards, we have again our key, we have the wait on run function, and then a send message function where we basically get the thread, the contents of our question, using the thread ID, the assistant ID, and then doing what we did before in each of the cells of the notebook where we ask one question after another. We're creating our user interface, upload possibility files, and then here we're uploading our files by creating our client, our Vectorstore, the stream to Vectorstore, our assistant with the tool file search, adding the assistant ID with the Vectorstore ID, and then we're creating our thread. So this is basically the starting point when we're uploading our files within Streamlit. Afterwards, we're just asking questions after questions after questions. The thread is not to be initialized, it is always the same thread. And then we can having a nice conversation with our chatbot about the file. So let's get started and see how this looks. So we're uploading our file, waiting a few seconds until it's added to the Vectorstore, and then we're asking, can you tell me who is eligible for a reimbursement? There we see all full-time and part-time employees are eligible for travel reimbursements. What type of reimbursements exists? See if we also find this information within our document. Then the final question would be something like, okay, so we see it's for airfare, train, bus fare, and so on. Transform me the last message into a bullet list. So it's a bit too structured, a bit better. We want to see it in a bullet form, and there we're good to go. Reimbursement of airfare, train or bus, and so on. So here we have created now our stateful conversational assistant based on the OpenAI Assistant API and the Vectorstore, which is, as you remember, important difference to the chat completion provided by OpenAI. The chat completion is just question, answer, question, answer, not having a conversation, not having a knowledge behind. If you want to use a chat completion with some knowledge, you need to have a local Vectorstore, such as Vice. If you want to have a chat completion with Vectorstore and a conversation, you need to manage the conversation by yourself, such as using LangChain and the conversation buffer. And here is all facilitated by OpenAI using just two parts, the assistant and the Vectorstore, and then combining both together. That's it. We're at the end. Now you should have a fully functional application, uploading multiple documents, having the integration of OpenAI, generating answers, and giving you the references used to give you the correct answer. If you have any questions, any comments, any errors, drop me a comment below and I will answer you as soon as I can so you can continue with your. If you have any ideas for future videos, drop me also a message below so we can create more videos together for us and for the community. Thank you very much and see you next time.